going to begin? Okay. So, good evening. We are here with Justin Orr, and now he's going to say hello to you guys and also present a little about himself. So, good evening, Justin. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you. Yes, I'm happy to be here. Yeah, my name is Justin Orr. I was born here in Canada in a little town called Three Hills, Alberta. And I went to Brazil when I was 1 year old. And basically, that's all I remember was going to Brazil when I was one. And I grew up in the state of Paraná. I've actually lived in two states in Brazil. I've lived in Rondônia, in a city called Porto Velho, and we lived there for 5 years. And then from there, we moved to Paraná and to Campo Mourão, where I studied and lived for about 8 to 9 years. And then from there, came back to Canada and did my high school here in Canada, and then so I've been back and forth in Brazil and in Canada. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's a
Yeah,
little bit of an introduction, but
after you finished your high school, Justin, you came to Brazil again?
yes, I did. I came the November of 2014. I came back to Brazil, and I just wanted to come back because I left as a teenager. I left Brazil as a teenager, and so I always wanted to come back. So I did 1 year of college, and after that 1 year of college, then I went back to Brazil, back to Campo Mourão, and I started just working in the area of auto body, which is repairing and painting cars, and also teaching English at Yazigi. So I started
Mm-hmm.
teaching English there as well. So
Mm-hmm. And
yeah.
and how long have you been there since you moved
And
again?
I was there for, I think it was about almost 3 years. It wasn't a complete 3 years, but we can round it off to 3 years. But yeah, I came back to Canada in the beginning of 2017. So
All right.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
February
Well,
actually. Yeah,
almost 3 years.
yeah, it's almost, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, Justin. So I've got some questions that our
Okay,
students
cool.
asked you. They're very curious about your life. I've got some questions they asked. And the first one I got is from a student in the academic level. Her name is Mariana.
Okay.
And she asks, what is your relation with the Portuguese language? She means like, which language do you think more, like Portuguese or English? Do you think first in Portuguese or in English? Is there this relation or no?
Okay, that's a very good question. Thank you, Mariana, for that question. And it's a hard one to answer because yes, to a certain degree, um, I transition back and forth no problem. Um, and so I'd like to say that Portuguese is my first language because I do tend to go back into it because I think a lot, I process a lot in Portuguese, but also um, being here in Canada and always being very involved in English and working in English and being all day involved in English, you do tend to then start thinking in English more often. And
Mm-hmm.
so, but yes, I think in both. It's kind of strange to explain it, but um, the best way I can describe it is that um, my mother, she likes to explain and say that I don't really have the difficulty of knowing two languages. I think,
Mm-hmm.
especially in my case, because I grew up with both English and Portuguese, and so for me, I don't really have a foundation in one or the other language. So it's kind of tricky. So lots of times it's like my brain confuses a little bit. Like I'll say something in Portuguese, but it sounds very Canadian.
Uh-huh.
and then I'll say something in English, which will sound very Brazilian. And so people will look at me and they're like, "You're not from here," kind of thing. And so even in English, was surprisingly enough, people think I'm either, they don't think I'm from Brazil, but they think I'm from Quebec or Europe somewhere, because I
Mhm.
carry a very light English accent, but an accent, I should say, in my English. But
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know if that answers the question or not, but
Yeah, I think it does. It does. Yeah, and I was thinking here because the last club we had, we talked to an American guy. His name is Ron, and it seems like he has a different accent from yours. He,
oh,
he,
okay.
he seems more American, you know?
Yeah, yes, yes. Americans have different, slight different accent than
Yeah,
Canadians do.
different accent from Canada. Yeah, that's it. And also, I think because you've lived here in Brazil for a long time, like for 14 years, right?
Yeah, 14 years. Yeah,
So you acquired this Brazilian way,
yeah,
right? So you're half Brazilian and half Canadian. So it's
yeah,
so
yeah.
cool. It's so nice. All right. And the next question we have is from Jade. She's also from academic because I don't know if you know, Justin, but in Paraná Fala Inglês we have different kinds of levels, and we have the more advanced level that is academic, and then we have basic and intermediate, pre-intermediate,
Oh, okay,
and
cool.
these girls they are from academic. And she asked also a very nice question. She asked, what are the main cultural differences of the two countries?
Mm.
And also, yeah, and also there's more.
There's more.
One positive aspect that Canada has and Brazil doesn't have, and the other way around. One positive aspect that Brazil has and Canada doesn't.
Okay. Well, thank you, Shaji, for that question. Yes, that is a very good question. And it's often what my wife and I, what we discuss, and with other friends that are from Brazil here, we often, because when you come from a different country, you do tend to compare, right? And so
Yeah. Yeah.
um, the, I guess I'll start with basically, I think Brazil is very more, the people are very more, the
Mhm.
culture, the people are more lively, they're more bubbly, they're more happy. Um, and the food is just ridiculously good. And
Yeah,
so
I
there's
agree.
nothing to complain about the food.
Yeah.
Um, and also, yeah, I think the culture of Brazil is, yeah, just the way people embrace you, the way people, lots of times you won't know that person personally, but right away you can start a conversation. It's very welcoming, very warm. Whereas with Canadians, oh, and another thing was in Brazil, it's very easy to make friends. It's very easy. Whereas in Canada, the culture is very secluded or very closed, in a sense.
Okay.
They're very welcoming to tourists, to people who are not from Canada. They're very welcoming. They're very nice, very polite. Canadians are very
Mhm.
known to be polite.
Mhm.
um, but the other aspect of that is that it's very hard to have a very meaningful relationship with the Canadian. Lots of times it's very superficial,
Mhm.
and I think lots of times, me coming back to Canada, it's very hard. I can maybe name in my fingers the amount of Canadian friends that I do have that are close, and it's all
Mhm.
because, yeah, they're more closed, I guess, to relationships. It takes years for you to acquire a good friendship, whereas in Brazil, it's like that same day you're almost like best friends, you know. So it's like, and so it's
Totally.
really really amazing. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, and so my experience in Brazil was, yeah, it was basically that. The weather is also very good.
Yeah.
Um, I myself, I suffer a lot because I'm white skin. I my in Brazil it was okay actually because of the I always got burnt. I always got red burnt, but my skin was always well hydrated.
Mhm. Mhm.
Whereas here the climate is very dry, and so
Mhm.
you have that aspect. My wife, who she's from Rondônia, Ji-Paraná, Rondônia, she came and she suffered a lot with the skin, very dry, and so we always have to keep putting moisturizers on and everything, all that kind of stuff. So um,
Mhm.
yeah, and so for one negative aspect, for me personally, um, I think I think right now for Brazil, it's kind of hard because I'm very positive about Brazil. I'm one of those that love Brazil and just want to be there, you
Uh-huh.
know. But I think the negative aspect, and I think maybe a lot of Brazilians would agree with, is it's hard to say one, but maybe two. I might. Can I say two? Is that all right?
Yeah, yeah, you can.
Would be I think the economy, the way it's going right now, it's very negative, right?
Yeah.
I think the politics in Brazil is very complicated. It's very, um, and that unfortunately just um, really puts a negative side in Brazil in that aspect, because I know it's hard to look at Brazil and the people are suffering because of the way politics is, right? And so
Mhm.
it's really complicated. And then I think the other one that I was just thinking is the famous jeitinho brasileiro, right? The Brazilian way. I
Yeah.
think that's the only thing that's negative, that can be a negative, is because they're always trying to be better, or how can I word it? I mean, everybody knows what jeitinho brasileiro means, but in
Uh-huh.
order to me for
You're
me to
like
explain in English, it's hard. But
you're always it's like I think Brazilians are always trying to take advantage from
yes,
things,
that's it. Yeah,
no matter if they make a prejudice to somebody.
exactly,
Some of them.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. And so I
Yeah.
think I think that might be the negative part for
Yeah.
Brazil. But everything else is just amazing about Brazil.
Yeah.
And then for Canada, yeah, I would say, unless you like the cold weather, I think Canada the weather is very cold.
Is it
Um,
very cold in your city?
Here in Calgary, actually, no. It's kind of strange because we have a phenomenon that is called Chinook, and basically it could be 30 below zero or 30
Oh my
negative,
God.
and one day it's go up to 15 degrees Celsius.
Uh-huh.
So all of a sudden, it's like it's a hot wind that comes from the ocean or from somewhere, and it creates heat. Creates heat in the area, and so
Uh-huh.
everything melts. You're like, what is this? Yesterday was winter, now it's summer. What's going on?
I get
Um,
it.
and then that creates headaches on people because of the
Mm-hmm.
drastic change in climate, like in degrees in Celsius. It's a huge change. So like from 30 below to all of a sudden 15 above, that's 45 degrees difference. So it's like
Yeah.
people will start having headaches. Not everybody, but a lot of people. And so,
Mm-hmm.
but yes, Calgary can be very cold. Um, but it's not like the rest of Canada where it can be like 30 below for weeks, maybe months.
Mm-hmm.
It's always fluctuating. So it's always up and down. Like
Mm-hmm.
today, it's December. It's supposed to be winter. Today was 12 degrees.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. It
12
was totally
degrees.
summer for you.
Yeah, so like snow, almost all the snow is gone. Like it's been melting all day and everything. So,
Yeah,
and
it's so
so
maybe it's because of the global warming that everything's so confusing.
I don't know. I don't know. They say that this is the only spot that has the Chinook.
Oh,
So yeah,
uh-huh.
it's the only area of Canada that has that. So So they say that Calgarians, people who live in Calgary, don't suffer as much as everybody else in Canada.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And
And
so,
you mentioned
and then
something.
yeah, I think that would be a negative part. And then a good part of Canada would be the what I'm trying to think here how you would word it. Is the living. I'm trying to see. I'm translating already. Estilo de vida, lifestyle. Your
Lifestyle.
lifestyle, like your living basis in Canada is very good. Um, you can't compare dollars to reais, right? But um, you can live very well, very decent here in Canada with a normal, simple job. You can
Mm-hmm.
you can pay rent, you can buy groceries, you can do a lot of things that if without comparing, but in Brazil, lots of those things would be very expensive, very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we can do so much with the money that we have here. Let's just say it lasts longer than if it was in reais, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's a positive thing, and so that's why I think a lot of people like to live in Canada or come to Canada is because you're living the cost of living. That's the word. The cost of
Mm-hmm.
living is so much better
Mm-hmm.
than in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
All right. Thank you
Hmm.
very much. And now we've got another question, and this one is from a basic student. Her name
Okay.
is Erica,
Erica. Okay.
and yeah, and she asked you, what was your biggest difficulty, your great difficulty when you came back to Canada, when you were 14 and you had to come back to Canada?
Okay. Wow. That's a very good question. Thank you, Erica, for that question. Um, yes, my biggest difficulty was essentially was having the culture shock of coming back to what is supposed to be my culture, right? My country. And I think the hardest part for me was friends. I had I had a lifetime of friends in Brazil, right?
Mm-hmm.
Since 6 years old, 7 year old, and being years together, right? And so to I think the hardest part was to say goodbye to them and to come to Canada where I knew nobody. I didn't know anybody. I had relatives, like I had grandparents, I had cousins, but not I wasn't as close to them because they lived here in Canada, so I didn't see them all the time, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have a very close relationship with my family here in
Mm-hmm.
Canada, and so I think that was the hardest part
Mm-hmm.
was the friendship. The language itself was a little bit of a barrier, more because growing up in Brazil, my mom, being Canadian, she said the rule was always speak English at home. So I did grow up speaking English at home, but outside of home was always Portuguese. And so for me, the language wasn't hard. It was reading, writing, actually studying in English. Because until then, I studied until grade 8 in Portuguese. Everything was in Portuguese. My classmates, they would try and copy my English test, and they wouldn't do so well. So it
Oh
was so
God.
funny because one time this is my mom telling me was one time the school director called and said um, we're having some trouble with your son because he speaks very good English, but his writing is very horrible. Like the spelling is bad,
Uh-huh.
grammatically is bad. Because what
Uh-huh.
happened was, since I was studying in Portuguese, I would write the way you pronounce it.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of silent letters and different things like that. And so I would
Mm-hmm.
vegetable, I would write vegetable or something. I don't know what it was like. That
Uh-huh.
was crazy. And so,
Yeah,
um, but
and
yeah, for the most part, I think it was yeah friendship and also just having to learn everything in English when I was used to learning everything in Portuguese. So yeah.
Yeah, this is a question I would like to add up in Erica's question about the language, because you said you spoke English with your mom and dad at home here
Hmm.
in Brazil. You spoke English, but outside you spoke Portuguese. And how was it for you when you were a child and you had that, difference? Did you mix sometimes? For example, with your friends, you would speak English?
Um, I don't. To be honest, I don't remember ever doing that.
Uh-huh.
But what I remember as a kid was, or as a child, was my mom would, um, oh, what's the word? Call my attention, like give me bronca, let's say, like give me,
Uh-huh.
in English. And lots of times my friends would be like, "What did she say? What did she say?" And for me, just to not to let them know that I was in trouble, I would just say, "Oh, she's calling me to have lunch," or she's like calling me, to have something else. And
That's
so,
amazing.
um, other than that, I don't remember having that clash of like, I think in my mind I had separated it in such a way that, okay, at home, or at least with my parents, English, with my
Mhm.
friends and everybody else, Portuguese. And so I think I had divided that so well in my brain and my mind that I didn't. Of course, there's the odd time that you'll be like, you'll throw a word or two accidentally. Like I'll do that even here when I'm working. I'll throw it in Portuguese accidentally. Like I'll
Mhm.
say "porquê" instead of "why." Like I like "porquê." Oh, sorry, why? Like like it's kind of funny.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I remember a lot of my friends would be like, once they knew I was Canadian, then they would like want me to say something in English, or there was that kind of interaction. Like, oh, say a
I
whole
get it.
sentence in English. Like, say
And then
this, say that.
you could say anything and they wouldn't know what you said.
Exactly, exactly. so
Yeah,
so
that's so
lots
cool.
of times, because I didn't like saying bad words, my friends were like, "Say a bad word, say a bad word." I would just say something else, and they thought it was the bad word, so they're just like,
Oh my God,
and then just say it.
that's so cruel. They thought they were saying a bad word.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
I
so
get
funny.
it. All right, it is, it is. Yeah, and now another question. This question is, yeah, you already answered it, but I will ask you anyway.
For sure.
It's from Karen. Karen.
Karen, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's from pre-intermediate course, and she asks like that: if you still need to study one of the languages, not to forget it, something, or if it's like automatic for you, or if you think, like you already said, sometimes you mix things.
Hmm.
You mix Portuguese
Yeah,
with
yeah,
English.
mixing back and forth.
Hmm.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Karen, for that question as well. Um, I think now there was one point in my life, actually, when we went back when I was 14. I did my high school, and we had moved to the province of Ontario, but it was to a part of Canada that is it'd be like the interior of Paraná, like very secluded, where you don't see a lot of foreigners, like, or people that are from different countries. Because actually, Canada nowadays, kind of going off track a little bit of the question, but
Hmm.
Canada nowadays has a lot of different cultures. It's coming in like lots of Chinese, lots of East Indians, lots of Portuguese. A lot of people from Portugal are coming. Spain. So it's starting to have a lot of diverse in the Canadian culture, Canadian country as a country. And so where we had moved, there was nobody, like, there was maybe like somebody who used to live in Chile, or like Uruguay or something, and so you could like speak a little bit of Spanish every now and then, but that was about it.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so I spent probably, at least 2 to 3 years without almost speaking any Portuguese. Like I spoke it because of friends on Facebook, but
Mhm.
like having like a dialogue, I didn't have as much. And so then that part, yes, you start forgetting. It's not that you forget the word, but your mind puts it away. And
Mhm.
so because you're not using it every day, like I would speak with my dad in Portuguese. Today he's resorted to just English almost. He'll talk to my wife in Portuguese, but like lots of times when he calls, it'll be in English and be like,
Uh-huh.
why are you talking to me in English? It's kind of funny.
Uh-huh.
But so yeah, basically I think you go forget putting the words back in your mind, and you don't use them. Excuse me, you don't use them as often. And so I think, yeah, you in a sense you do start forgetting the words just because you don't use them as often, so they go into the background. But today, I don't think I forget. I make a lot of mistakes, but that I like to blame it because I only have grade 8 Portuguese. And so my wife, she'll be correcting me all the time. She'll be like, "What did you say? Can you repeat that, please?" you know, and that automatically makes me either correct myself or just make a bigger mistake. but um, but for the most part, yeah, basically today it's just mainly maintaining the languages. So just interacting with my wife, I mainly just speak Portuguese with her. We do have our moments where we only speak English because she's still actually learning English.
Mhm.
Um, she would be in the intermediate. She's right now studying to try and take, I think it's TOEFL,
Mhm.
and so she's studying for that, or CLP, or well, there's several different tests that you have
Uh-huh.
to take. And so but yeah, so basically I think today I don't really um I won't have the opportunity, not the opportunity, that's not the right word. It would be, there's not a chance of forgetting the language because of all the technology.
Mhm.
I think this era, or this century, it's a lot easier to maintain the language. I think, for example, mm, maybe in my dad's time, when there was no computers, it was all like letters and everything. Like
In
my
book?
dad talks about, yeah, yeah, exactly. My dad talked about going 18 years without speaking English.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
he literally forgot a lot of the English and he had to relearn it. Of course, it's different from, like, it's in the back of your mind, but it's as if you have to just bring it back. And so for him, it was just a case of remembering how you speak English. It wasn't the
Mhm.
case of like having to learn per se the language. And so, but yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah, basically, yeah, just practicing daily and with friends and everything, it kind of maintains the language. So yeah.
Yeah. When you said that sometimes you forget a word in Portuguese because you don't use it so much. You use it with your wife, but some words you don't use, of course.
Hmm.
And I was thinking about us learning English in Brazil because we don't talk in English every
Hmm.
time, just in our classes, especially our students. They
Yeah,
don't have
yeah.
anybody to talk to. And then sometimes they go, and even us teachers, sometimes we are like, oh, I don't remember this word, or we don't remember the meaning. And I think it's
Hmm.
like you said, we already know, we are already seen, we have already seen this word, but we don't remember it because we don't use it so often. So
Yeah, that is,
it's
yeah.
like you said,
And I think that's the difficulty of learning a language outside of the country or the culture.
yeah.
I think that's the biggest difficulty. I remember one point, I think I shared it with teacher Ilana, about it would be neat if English schools, or even in, like, I don't know, like a funny example would be just in Campo Mourão, for example, have a cafe that
Hmm.
literally, it could belong to the school or to the university or something, but literally be a cafe that was literally everything in English. Like you have to order food in English. You have to, and in that specific place be specifically English, only English. Some kind of idea that would help students to have at least a place where they can locate, this is where I'm going to be able to practice my English and just practice it. I'll be listening to English and I'll be speaking English, because yes, I think that's the biggest difficulty of learning a language outside of the culture or country is the fact of the just not having anybody to be able to practice it, right? Because I think in Brazil you learn a lot of the theory, right? So that's what my wife had. She can read a lot better. In a sense, she can read a lot better than she can speak, because when she learned English, it was all through reading, right? Through reading and whatnot. And for her, actually, my wife now, she's actually learning. She works at a store called Home Depot. I'm trying to think of a store that we would have in Campo Mourão that would be similar to Home Depot. Home Depot is a franchise, but
do you remember Pernambucanas?
What's that?
Pernambucanas, do you remember it? A store
Pernambucanas, I remember. So it's kind of like that, but it would be more. It's more back to construction. So it sells everything construction.
Oh, right. I get it.
But as well as technology and different things like that. So it's a big store. And so my wife, she actually started working at this place, and she actually has learned more English just being involved. And so it forces her. She makes mistakes every now and then. She'll come home and tell me, and we'll laugh together because it's pretty funny stories. And so but now once she does the mistake, she actually learns it. So different things like that. And so, I think that's the best way, I think, of learning is usually either engraving yourself into the culture and practicing it. And so, having somebody to practice the language makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, I think that's the problem that you said, because when we are in course here in Brazil, some of the courses, they don't focus in speaking so much. And when they do, maybe the students don't have someone to practice with. And when they go to a foreign country, they are ashamed to speak. They are shy.
Very shy,
mistakes. Because we Brazilians, we are very shy of committing mistakes. We're my English is not so good.
No, you're speaking very good. You're speaking very good. So no worries, no worries. And you're speaking actually very good. So don't worry. My wife. Oh, one of the things you mentioned there, I'm just trying to remember. Was that like, for example, my wife, one of the things that she suffered a lot at first was, and it's just like the other way around with Canadians or Americans coming to Brazil. They say oi, tudo bem, and then the other response is like, e aí, beleza, como que tá? Like something that they don't learn, right? And so in English for my wife, it was, hey, how's it going? And she was like, what am I supposed to answer there? Like, I'm used to like, hey, how are you? Or hi, my name is Justin, how are you? Like, the basics. And so like, people will come to you and they'll say, hey, what's up? Or like, hey, how's it going? And different expressions like that. And so, I was going to give another example of my wife was, she tells it better than I do. I actually laugh a lot harder when she tells it. But the one example was the because here in Canada, because of the snow and everything, they use a lot of salt. It's like salt, but it's got chemicals with it, so it melts the snow. Okay. And so this guy came and he brought this big bag, and actually he asked her for the bag, and so she looked up in her app, because the store has an app. She looked it up and she said, yeah, no, we have this salt. Um, and then he's like, how much? Like, what's the weight? Like, how much does it come in, or like, what's the bag? And she looked at the bag, and it said 55 lb, and she's like, lb. It must be libras. So okay, so she's like,
Mhm.
oh, it's 55 libras.
Oh my
And the
God.
guy's like, libras? I don't know libras. She's like, yeah, 55 libras. He's like, libras. And so she looked again, and it said, oh, 44 kilograms. So she
Uh-huh.
said, oh, it's 44 kilos. And he's like, kilos? I'm sorry, I don't know kilos. And then he's like, let me see your phone. So she showed it to her, and he's like, oh, that is pounds. Like
Mhm.
lb is pounds, right? And so
Mhm.
she's like, how am I supposed to know that that's pounds? Like,
Yeah.
there's no p there. And so,
Yeah, that's so difficult to understand because
right,
it's an LB and then you say pounds and it's like, what?
exactly. And then of course they had a laugh about it, but now
Yeah.
she never forgets. Now every time she sees
Yeah.
lb, she knows that it's pounds, and so she's
Yeah.
learned something new. So, and Canadians, and I think one thing that is nice about at least the Canadian culture, I don't know about Americans, but Canadian culture, you can make mistakes, nobody's going to laugh at you. They're always going to correct you, and they're going to correct you in a polite way, in a way that you don't feel embarrassed. I think
Okay.
that's what. And if they do, they'll laugh with you. They'll just say, "Oh, that's funny" and whatnot, and they'll show you, or they'll teach you. I think that's what's really nice. And at the same time, even if you say something completely wrong, they'll make their best effort to understand you. And so
Mhm.
I think that's what's really nice, is that Stacy, she's had very good experiences, even in her work, like even with her boss, her manager. She'll say something, like she'll pronounce maybe a word halfway, like she won't say the whole word,
Mhm.
and they know exactly what she means, and they're like, yeah,
Mhm.
no, go ahead, Stacy, go ahead, man, for sure, and that's it. And so they will do their best to help you, and to teach you in the best way, that you don't feel embarrassed, you don't feel bad. Because yes, I agree. Like, it's very, Brazilians are very shy when it comes to Portuguese. There are some Brazilians though that they don't care. They'll say it. They'll
Yeah.
say it wrong, and who cares, right?
Yeah.
We have a friend like that here. She's not scared of asking questions. She'll say it all wrong, and like it's pretty funny. But other than that, yeah, I think it's very good. Um, so yeah, we would have tons of examples of
Mhm.
um, learning through experience, and I think that's the best way.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard from the owner of the school I worked at. She said that in the USA, the Americans are not patient. Like if you say something wrong, if you don't understand what they say, they wouldn't repeat to you, and they will look with a face like, "What are you doing in my country if you don't speak my language?" So
Hmm.
it's like
Hmm.
she said they are so rude, and that's why she always traveled to Canada because she said there people speak more. They don't speak so fast as Americans,
Hmm.
and they also don't make fun of you or they try to understand, like you said.
Yeah. I mean, you will find the odd Canadian that doesn't have patience, but
The
99% of the
majority.
time you're gonna find somebody who's very patient, and he'll talk to you, and try to understand.
That's
So.
cool. All right. So another student from the pre-intermediate, her name is Maria. She asked something similar to Jad's question.
Mhm.
She asked about your how you adapted when you went to Canada. How was your adaptation? I don't know if that's the word.
Which
How
one,
did
sorry?
you adapt? How did you make it in Canada when you went there? When you came back? And how did you? How can I say that? How did you start feeling? Can I say? How did you start being natural with things like the food, like the climate and like the culture, because you are used to Brazilians' culture, food, and climate, and then
Hmm.
you went to a totally different country. So how did you make these differences? How
The
did you deal
difference.
with
Oh,
it?
wow. Thank you, Maria, for
Yeah.
that question. That's another very good question. um, Let me think here. Well, first for the food wasn't hard because having a mother that was Canadian, she naturally cooked Canadian food. And so living in Brazil, it was kind of funny because my dad cooked Brazilian and my mom Canadian. So so it
That's
was
so
always
nice.
a mixture. Like, for example, and it was weird, like my friends in Brazil, they'd look at me like, you're weird. Like, an example would be we would have mashed potatoes and
Uh-huh.
uh, and like chicken, for example, mashed potatoes and chicken, and a
Okay.
big glass of milk. Like, who does that, right? Like, what is that? You know?
Yeah.
And that's just kind of normal for Canadians. It's like they love to drink a full glass of just pure milk. And I remember in Brazil, like, if I had friends that drink milk, it was with either sugar or with coffee. It was never by
Yeah.
itself. And so I was
Uh-huh.
the weird one. I was the weird one that drank milk pure and everything. And
But did you
so,
drink milk during your lunch?
yeah,
During your dinner?
lunch, supper. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's
weird.
crazy. It's weird. Yeah. Now as an adult, I don't do that, but but before, growing up, that was kind of normal for me.
Okay.
And so I think the food wasn't hard to adapt. I think it was harder, like in the sense of not to adapt, but like you miss the Brazilian food. You miss because Canadian food is, let's be honest, it's not very good. It's not that it's not very good. It's just bland. There's no tempero. There's no spices.
Mm-hmm.
They don't put a lot of salt, garlic. It lacks the seasoning in the food.
Okay.
So I think
Mm-hmm.
that part was hard. I think the other one, yeah, the cold was hard to adapt. Till this day, I'm very sorry. I'm going to use a Portuguese word again.
Okay.
Friorento. I'm very friorento. I don't like the cold very much. I can handle it. Like I can. I don't like. How can I? I'm cold, but I'll be okay.
Uh-huh. You don't
Whereas
freak out if you're cold.
whereas because I'm accustomed to the cold, so I can handle the cold, but I way
Okay.
rather be in a hot climate. Um, and so for me, I think yeah, the weather was a little bit hard to adapt. Um, and then yeah, the culture, I think it wasn't so much as well. Like it wasn't too hard because my mom was Canadian, and so I think that's what's nice. If I can say a positive thing about growing up in two cultures is that you are very quick to adapt. You can adapt to changes. You can adapt to. That's why when I moved to Canada with my wife, it wasn't too so hard for me, but for her it was very hard because leaving family behind, new culture, you don't speak the language, food, nobody understands you,
Mm-hmm.
different things like that. And so I think when you grow up with two cultures, um, you just learn to adapt quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, yeah, the culture, yeah, there's things of the Canadian culture that I'm like, that is so weird, like I just find it very strange. But but for the most part, yeah, it was okay to adapt to. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think the one thing that was easy for me was humor. I really like. I'm very a bubbly person. Like I love to laugh, smile, and so for me, the humor. Like my wife, she's learning the Canadian humor, and Canadian humor is very dry. It's very um, I don't know how to describe it, but it's very dry. And so for
Mhm.
something that's the thing when you try to translate a joke or try to translate something that's funny, lots of times it loses its meaning,
Yeah,
you know? So in Portuguese, I'll translate it for her and she'll be like, "You're laughing at that? Like, really?" Like,
not funny.
you know, it's different things like that that she'll be like, "That wasn't funny, like really." But I think the what was easy to adapt was the humor, just because I guess I
Uh-huh.
understand it in English and having the
Uh-huh.
Canadian culture. So yeah.
All right. Okay, Justin. And now that's our last question
Hmm.
because we have another student that her name is Maria Eduarda, and she
Okay.
asked the same question about cultural differences that you already answered.
Hmm.
So we have the last one that it's from Hudson. We would
Hudson.
say Hudson, Hudson in English.
Yeah, yeah. You'd pronounce it Hudson. Yeah, Hudson.
Hudson, yeah.
Yeah.
And he asks about how is the reception from the Canadians to Brazilians, and that you already answered that you were very kind and gentle and try to understand
Hmm.
Brazilian
Hmm.
people and all the foreigners. And he also asks if Canada is a country that has internship programs, programs for people to move there and learn English. Do you know that if Canada has these programs?
Yes, they do. I'm just not sure. I'd have to do some research, but I know they do because there's a lot of Brazilians that come to Canada either for just learning the language, like English,
Okay.
and others come just to a way to come into Canada is through studying again. So a lot of them will do university again or do college again, and
Mm-hmm.
that way they'll go into they'll be able to come into Canada. But yes, for internships, I know that there is. I'm just not 100% sure what the names of them are. I can do some research and maybe even give it to you and give it to so you can
Yeah,
pass it on to
yeah,
Udsung. So,
yeah.
um,
Please, if you can.
what's that? Yeah, for sure, I will do that. Um, and so yeah, no, there's. Can you just repeat the question because I think I just got thinking about the internship, but
Yeah, it's like he asks about if there is a program. Let me read the question again so we can
for
see
sure,
it.
no worries.
Yeah, so if it he asks if it's a country that has like these programs for immigrants to go to Canada and work there or study there. So if they have
Mm,
this, I forgot the word in Portuguese, incentivo for
mm.
people to go to Canada, you know?
Incentives, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do have. Yeah, like I said, I don't really know a whole lot about them other than I know that they do have those programs.
Mhm.
I know that they had at one point, but I found out that they don't do anymore is Ciências Sem Fronteiras,
Oh yeah.
Science Without Frontiers. So I know they
Mhm.
have that program, or they
Mhm.
used to. Um, but I know that yes, a lot of Brazilians do come in
Mhm.
from studying.
Mhm.
Um, Actually, a lot of the Brazilians that because Calgary actually has a very big, it's a growing Brazilian community. I'm not sure how many, but they're thinking probably about 3,000 to 4,000 Brazilians here in
A
Calgary.
lot. Mhm.
And
Only in
so
Calgary.
yes, yes, and there's even three Brazilian churches. So there's even
Oh.
churches started that it's all in Portuguese. They'll have like
Uh-huh.
service Portuguese and English, different things like that.
Uh-huh.
There's even some friends of ours. They're actually from Maringá.
Oh,
It's
so
quite interesting.
cool.
Yeah, yeah. So even from Maringá, we have people here.
That's so
Um,
nice.
and so I know that a lot of them they do that. They'll pick a college and they'll apply to it. And so essentially, the way I understand is that you just have to have a good English score. So like TOEFL or
Mhm.
CLP, I think it is, and there might be one other one. And I know that they just basically they'll apply to these universities, and then um, they'll call you if they really like you. I know that a few of them, it's harder because you have to prove that you can live in Canada without working. So that's the one problem. Um, and
Mhm.
so and so a lot of the Brazilians that are here, they come as a couple because then one can work and one can study. And so
Mhm.
that way, because it's very hard to not work. Um,
Yeah.
and so it's kind of complicated, but they do have programs. I'll just have to look into it,
All
and I'll
right.
give it to Udzon. But another thing that I forgot to mention was the one thing. So the Home Depot, the place where my wife works, there's actually about there used to be 28 Brazilians in this store.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's
Wow.
insane. And and the reason they like Canadians love to contract Brazilians, like to hire Brazilians.
Mhm.
And I think that's another positive thing about the culture is that Brazilians have a very good work ethic. They work
Mhm.
hard because of the culture, right? Because of the it's so hard to grow to have things in Brazil. So Brazilians are very esforçado, like they
Mhm.
work very
Hard
hard,
working.
hardworking
Mhm.
people. And so when they come to Canada, they don't play around. They work hard. And so the Canadians, they'll call in sick. They'll say, "Oh, I can't come today," or like, "I'm too tired. I'm not coming today." Different things like that. Whereas the Brazilians, they know they can count 100% on the Brazilians because they know that the Brazilians are going to come, they're going to work, and they're going to work hard, and they're
Mhm.
very well compensated. Like they're very well rewarded for it. And so
Mhm.
we've got friends that are climbing up into good positions, good position jobs
Mhm.
because of their very good work ethic. So
Mhm.
yeah.
And was it easy for your wife to get a job there when you
Yeah,
moved?
yeah. It was pretty easy. She was very nervous at first because her English was limited. It's way
Mhm.
better now.
Mhm.
But they hired her anyways. They said, you know what, you're trying your best. You're trying to communicate,
Mhm.
and yeah, they hired her. She's a cashier at this, so she's constantly with people. So she's
Yeah.
always talking to them, and yeah,
She's
she'll make
always
mistakes,
grateful.
but she's all right with it, and she learns. And so
Yeah.
yeah, no, they it's for the most part it's very fairly easy as long as you have a good base in your English.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, as long as you have a good base, you won't have a problem.
Mhm.
So, and you just have to show a little bit of confidence with your English. As long as you
Mhm.
you show confidence, you're not scared to make mistakes, then you'll be
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because if you're scared, you say nothing and then you don't get to practice, right?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
what's they like at this store that my wife works, it's it's funny because even though there's lots of Brazilians, they'll kind of talk Portuguese with themselves, but for the most part, they're always in English. So they're always speaking in English because I think that's the other difficulty, right? Some people,
Mhm.
they want to, even here in Canada, there's lots of Brazilians that they separate themselves from the Brazilian community because they want to learn English, right? And
Mhm.
so the only way to learn English is to maybe, go
Uh-huh.
aside a little bit from the Brazilians. But at the same time, I think what was perfect for my wife is because of the culture shock. I think that's the biggest thing because a lot of Brazilians they'll come to Canada wanting to. We've had two friends, two families that they were here and they couldn't adapt to Canadian culture. They found it very different, very strange,
Mhm.
and so for them they couldn't adapt. But what I was going to say about my wife is that what made it easy for her to, let's say, adapt to the Canadian culture is that the Brazilians here. It
Mhm.
makes it so much easier because when you go into a different culture, you lots of times will feel alone. You
Mhm.
will feel discouraged. You'll feel like, what am I really doing here? You start asking questions, right?
Yeah.
And I think for my wife, I think the best thing was to have a Brazilian community where, you know, you on your bad day you can go and you'll be okay. You're encouraged and everything. Of course, you don't want to make that your main focus, right? Because you want to dive into the Canadian culture. You want to be part of the culture, right? And so
Yeah.
it's got its moments. It's got its positive and negative. So yeah. So basically, you've got good things about having a Brazilian community, and you do have bad things, like, right. So you tend to not speak English as much,
Yeah.
which is not good, right? But for the most part, it's been good. So I think if I can give an advice for anybody in your class, anybody in the class who is thinking of coming to Canada, I give thumbs up. Yes, come. You will enjoy it, but it's not it's not
A
all
walk in the park.
roses. Like, it's not all, like, like mil maravilhas is what I was going to say.
Yeah, I've heard
Because
this
you have those.
expression.
What's that? Sorry.
That expression, I walk in the park. Is
Yes, I
that
walk in the park. Yes,
not a
exactly.
walk
So
in the park,
you,
but you can
yeah,
handle
no,
it.
it worked perfect. It worked perfect. Yeah. And so it it will have its challenges. So just be prepared. It won't be easy because, yeah, you're in a new culture, new language. But as long as you understand and you're focused with your dream or your plans, you'll do just fine. So
All right.
yeah.
And I just have one more hint, one more, it's not a question, it's a hint that I would like you to say to our students,
Hmm.
because some of them, they can't go, uh, at least now, they can't go to a foreign country to learn, so they want to
Hmm.
learn here in Brazil.
Yeah.
And as you learned two languages at the same way,
Yeah.
simultaneously, I would like you to give a hint to our students of how you learned English. Of course, you were born speaking with your parents, like speaking, but
Hmm.
a hint you could give to our students.
Um, I think the it might be a little bit cliche to say, but or very common, but I think if you force yourself watching movies in English, watching movies in English, listening to music, but not listening to just listen. Because I think a lot of music in Brazil is played, but people don't know what it's saying, right? They just listen. It's like, oh, it's got a
Exactly.
nice beat. It sounds good. And I think if you focus yourself in listening and trying to understand what is this singer singing about, like what is he talking about in this song, and watching the movie in English, you can put subtitles so it helps you so you're not completely lost, and because in movies they speak naturally, right? They'll speak
Yeah.
fast, they'll say things, they'll use expressions that you've never heard before. And that's one thing that my wife does a lot is watch movies with subtitles, because, yeah, often she'll ask me, and she'll have the subtitles actually even in English, because if you can read,
Mm-hmm.
you're okay, right? And so she'll nowadays it's very rare when she asks me, what's this word mean, what does this mean? But she'll just ask what the word means, like the context she understands, but sometimes she'll just get stuck like on a word or something like that. And then also the reading out loud. I think making yourself hear what you're reading is also a
Mm-hmm.
good tip, a good
Mm-hmm.
advice. What else? I think that's about it. I know that, trying to think. I have a student, or I had a student, I should say, back at Yazigi, and she fulfilled her dream of coming to Vancouver, and she participated. I'm not sure um, what what program. I'll have to ask her, and maybe I'll send it to you. And
Okay.
she started with me from the, I think it was from the basic, and went into intermediate, and
Mm-hmm.
she she had an app or it's a kind of program that she spoke to foreigners all the time. Like it'd be like
Oh,
talking to them all the time. So I think that's another really good idea, is to just chat with them. Like have a pick a time of the day, or it's a program. It's really neat. It's kind of like, it's not a Facebook, but it's like a Facebook where you interact with other people who are also learning English, and also with just interacting
uh-huh.
with people who only
Mm-hmm.
speak English, and they're
Mm-hmm.
willing to teach and learn and show how
Your
different
experiences.
expressions. Yes, yes, exactly. And so I think that that helped her tremendously, because when she went to Vancouver, she was telling me that she hardly had any difficulty whatsoever. She had the
That's
odd
so,
one that they would like use a slang or an expression that she's never heard before,
yeah.
but for the most part, she had. I think it helped her experience in Canada a lot more. And so I think that's another neat idea, is to just, and I admired her. I was like, really, because I would think to myself, I'm like, I wouldn't have the courage, to to just chat to a stranger in English. But it's
Mm-hmm.
a very good idea, and I think if you force yourself, it would be good. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
those would be the tips, the advices
Yeah,
that
I
I'd give.
love the tip. That's what I usually tell my students, Justin. Like, listen to music, but pay attention, not just
Hmm.
listen to them, but search for the lyrics, try singing, because I
Yeah, try
learned that.
singing. Yeah, the best way, I think the best way, and to yeah, the best way to learn, even to how to pronunciate the words, is by singing, because by singing, even though they're taking a long time to say the one word, right? But
Yeah,
lots of times it will help you remember. It'll help you. It'll help your brain understand how it's pronounced, how it's said, maybe even in what
yeah,
context.
memorize it.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it helps a lot for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to think of something else. Um, oh, the other good thing about talking to other people who are either learning English or that do speak English is that, like, for example, I've seen it with my a little bit with myself, but more with my friends that are learning English, is
Uh-huh.
that um, you slowly go correcting yourself, especially when you listen to people who are naturally speak English, whose English is their only language. Like I can't think of an example right now, but like um, for example, he go there. Let's just say you say, "Oh, he go there every day," and then you're talking to somebody and he said, "Oh, he went there yesterday," or "He
Mm-hmm.
went there the other day."
Mm-hmm.
I think when you're listening to that person say that, you automatically start correcting yourself. You're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I wonder why he said went. Went sounds way better than go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, maybe I'll try that next time." And so like then next time you're like, "Oh, he went there for breakfast," or "He went there." You
Mm-hmm.
start slowly correcting yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah,
so I
that's
think that's another positive thing about chatting with people, talking with people, and so
mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. So, Justin, we came to the end of our live,
Oh
not a live
man.
club interview. Yeah, thank you so much for
You're welcome.
spending your time with us and giving all these tips and telling your life for us, like your story,
For
because I
sure.
think our students are going to love this because they always love it.
Right on,
Yeah,
right on.
and you're gonna help them because with this, not only they know you, they know your story, they know your tips that you gave, but
Hmm.
they will train their listening by trying to
Yes.
understand what you said and everything. So it helped us a lot. So thank you very much,
You're
and I
welcome.
hope
You're
you have
welcome.
a nice Christmas and a happy New Year.
Thank you. Thank you. You too.
Already.
I hope you guys have a wonderful time in class. I hope you guys will learn, and I hope that you guys, yes, will learn from this conversation, this interaction. Um, I hope I encouraged you guys a little bit, and yeah, I think you guys will have a blast, and yeah, it will just help your ears maybe to listen a little bit to Canadian English.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. It was amazing. And yeah, God bless you guys, and have a Merry Christmas and and a Happy New Year's to you guys as well.
You too. You too. Thank you very much, Justin.
You're
Bye
welcome. Thank
bye.
you. Bye bye.
Bye.